Next, we're going to talk about some of the settings that are available for Google Calendar, but first, there's one thing I forgot to share, and that is when you create an event and you're editing that event, there's a repeat option, which is pretty handy. If you've got a meeting that comes up every week or once a month, click repeat, and you can choose how it repeats. Every day, every weekday, so the same as daily, but not on weekends. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every Tuesday, Thursday. Monthly meetings, yearly meetings, and so you can pick weekly, repeat every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks or just every 1 week. Pick the day that you want it to repeat on, and starts on this date, and you can make it never end, or you can say it ends after 35 weeks or on a specific date. And so that's going to save you time setting up multiple calendar entries for an event that's basically the same event repeated over and over again. So use the repeat function if you want to set up recurring meetings. Okay, let's take a look at the settings. On the General tab, we have some options here for your time zone. It should automatically know that you're in the Pacific time zone, which is GMT -8. You can choose the format for date and time. You can add Gmail events automatically, or that means that they don't jump onto your calendar automatically. You have to add them yourself if you uncheck that. Default event duration, so when you create a new event, it can be set to 60 minutes by default, or you can change that. When you're working with a calendar system like you would in a school district where lots of people have different calendars that you need to see and be aware of, these settings can have an impact. So you might get invited to events like IEP meetings or things like that, and you might decline those events. And this asks if you want to see those on your calendar even if you've declined them. I like to see those things because then even if I can't attend an IEP meeting, I know that one happened, and maybe that just reminds me to get in touch with the parents or the counselors on that. Another one is automatically add invitations to my calendar. And so that's another one I would choose yes on, but this option in the middle says yes, but don't send event notifications unless I've responded yes or maybe. So when you get an invitation to an event, it shows up on your calendar, and then you have the option to click yes, I'll be attending, or maybe, or no. And so with this one here, you're not going to get little pop-ups saying, hey, you've got this meeting coming up, unless you've clicked yes or maybe to attend. So these two in combination can be useful. Okay, let's move over to calendars. And you'll see on here, I have quite a long list, and partly that's because I've been doing a lot of workshops on Google Classroom, so I have a bunch of these Google Classroom classes that I've invented, and then I don't really use them, but they're showing up on my calendar. So I'll show you how to get rid of calendars you don't want. Here's my main one for school, and I've renamed that Nate Hansen Work. And so I can edit notification settings, I can see who it's shared with, and I cannot unsubscribe from my own calendar. That's the one that is stuck there. But other calendars I can get rid of or unsubscribe from. And so if I don't want to see them in my list anymore, I can uncheck them. And that means that they won't show up in the over here on this list. Okay. So for example, if I want the birthdays one to just not even show up on this list, I go to settings, and I go to calendars, and I see the birthday one, and I uncheck that box. Okay, so that's been updated. Go back to the calendar, and birthdays is not one of my options. If I really want to see the birthdays one, I've got to go back into the settings and do that manually. What's nice about having this list here is that there's a lot of calendars I want to be able to look at quickly just for a moment. So I might want to check what's going on at Port Susan today. I turn that one on. I see that nothing here affects what I'm going to be doing down there, so I turn it back off. That's what this kind of list is for. So let's go back into the settings and calendars. Now there's two main calendars. You have my calendars, and it says these are calendars that I can view and modify. So these are ones that I've either created or I've been invited to participate in, and I can add events to it or delete events or modify entries, things like that. Down here at the bottom is other calendars, and these are calendars I can only view, and you can subscribe to any calendar that's public. And so there's lots of things you might want to have on here. Now what I have found is that it's possible to subscribe to a calendar that someone has actually given you permission to edit. And so some of these, even though they're in the other calendars section, I can still make changes to. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's calendars that you subscribe to end up here. Calendars that you're kind of a part of creating are up here. If you would like to share your calendar with a parent or another staff member, or make it available to a website, all of those features can be accessed in the individual calendar settings. And so the quickest way to get there is to hover your mouse over the calendar name and pull this little arrow down. And then you can go to calendar settings, which are only for that specific calendar. So I go to calendar settings. You can rename your calendar here. You can give it a description. You can have some embed code if you're familiar with HTML coding. You can put this on a website and the calendar will show up as a functional calendar. That's what you see on the Stanwood Camano School District website. This is an embedded calendar, and so it's functional. You can click on things and see details. You can change the view, look at the month view. It's an interactive calendar, and that's just embedded on a website. So if you have a website, you can embed that in there. If you want someone to be able to see your calendar, not necessarily make changes to it, but to actually just kind of see it. Maybe this is for a parent to see, or you want to put a link to it somewhere. This little button here is where you get that link. It says HTML, so you click that. And here is the address where you would get that calendar. So if I click that link, it opens up my calendar in sort of a public view. Okay? And so I can take this link up here and copy it, and then I could put that in an email and email it to the parents, and they could click that and go there. Or I could just paste this link on a website, and parents could click that link and then see the calendar. You got to be careful with that. There may be things on there you don't want parents to see, like IEP meetings and things like that. Maybe that'd be more appropriate for sharing with a staff member. Let's take a look at the Share This Calendar page. And I have the option to share this calendar with others and share it with everyone in the organization Stanwood Camano School District, and they can see all event details. And so only see, there's another option for see only free or busy, not the details. So they wouldn't know where I was, they would just know I'm not available for any other meetings during a certain time period. You can make the calendar public. And same options. You can allow the public to see all the details, or see only if you're free or busy. So there's some control over what they can see there. You can share with specific people. And so you can see that my calendar is shared with Kevin and Loy, and you can share this with anybody in the district. Just type in an email address there, and that will allow them to have permissions here. You can also allow someone else that you specifically share this with to make changes and manage the sharing options. So make sure you really trust who you're sharing this with if you're going to give them the permissions to make changes to your calendar. Let's take a look at the Edit Notifications tab. This is where you set the default notifications for your calendar. And so by default, anytime I have an event on my calendar, I get notified via email and pop-up 10 minutes prior to each event. And that's saved me a number of times. It happened today. If you want to add an extra default notification, you can add one there. And you have email or pop-up as your options, and then you can choose a number of minutes, hours, days, or weeks before each event. I'll remove that one. If you have all-day event notifications, you can also choose to have some reminders set up 1 day in advance or weeks in advance if you want. And you can choose the time that happens, which is interesting because if it's an all-day event, the calendar assumes that it starts at midnight. And so you probably don't want a reminder at 11:50 p.m. that you've got an all-day event coming up in 10 minutes. So you can adjust that. Maybe it reminds you the night before at 7 p.m. or something like that. Okay, and if you link your mobile phone to this system, you can choose to get text notifications of new events, changed events, canceled events, all those kind of things. Or you can just leave it set to email, which it is by default. Once you have your calendar set up on Google Calendar the way that you'd like it, it's very easy to link that to your iPhone or Android phone. Just download the Google Calendar app from the Android Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And once you download that and log in with your Stanwood Camano School District account, all these things are already set up. They'll show up on your calendar right away, and it'll sync those together. It's fairly easy to set up. It's not something I'm going to demonstrate here in this example, but it doesn't take too long to get that going.